Hi, everybody. Welcome to your Read Aloud for the Nearpod activity Lexington and Concord. So, what I'll do here is I'll read each slide one by one, and then you'll want to pause after each slide and take the time to answer the quiz questions on the Nearpod. So, here's our title slide Lexington and Concord, the battles that started the Revolutionary War. And then we have some directions here. Just please, again, a reminder that for the multiple choice questions, there are always at least three choices. If you can't see all the choices, you need to scroll down a little bit on the screen. So here's our first slide, the context and historical circumstances. Grab my laser pointer, and here we go. On the night of December 16th, 1773, American patriots destroyed 342 chests of British tea in Boston, Massachusetts. After the Boston Tea Party, British Parliament passed four laws called the Intolerable Acts and sent an army of 3,000 British soldiers to occupy the city of Boston. One of these laws, the Massachusetts Government Act, ended the colony's charter and put the colony of Massachusetts under direct control of the royal governor and the king. The people of Massachusetts were no longer allowed to elect government officials, and they were forbidden from holding town meetings. Parliament's answer to the rebellion in Massachusetts was to end democracy in the colony and put the British Army in charge. So you want to pause here and answer your questions on the next slide. Okay, here we go again. General Thomas Gage, leader of the British Army, decided his best move was to stop the Patriots from getting hold of any more weapons and gunpowder before things really got out of control. In September 1774, British troops secretly rowed up the Mystic River and marched to the King's Powder House, a few miles outside the city. They removed all the gunpowder being stored there and brought it back to Boston. When Americans got word of what had happened, rumors spread as far as Connecticut that war had broken out and that British warships were bombing Boston. From all over the region, colonists grabbed their guns and began streaming toward the city. When the rumors turned out to be false, the militiamen returned home. But the powder alarm of September 1774 was a warning for the entire colony. Go ahead and answer the questions, and we'll move on to the next slide. Vocab alert. Here's an important word you're going to need to know for the next series of slides. Militia. A militia is an army made up of citizens who serve as part-time soldiers during a time of danger or war. Next slide. From this point on, Patriot spies kept a close eye on the British redcoats in Boston. Patriots ignored the Massachusetts Government Act and voted to create their own government, the Massachusetts Congress. Although the British Army controlled the city of Boston, outside of the city, the Patriots were in charge. Special militia units called Minutemen were formed, citizen soldiers ready to march at a moment's notice. The Patriots also organized a system of horseback messengers who could ride through the countryside and spread the alarm if the British Army marched out of Boston again. Americans were determined that their weapons and their freedom would not be stolen from them. So please answer the questions, and I'll see you on the next slide. The British now declared Massachusetts to be in a state of rebellion. In April 1775, General Gage was ordered to disarm the Patriots and capture their leaders. Most of the Patriot leaders had already left Boston, but when Gage got word that the Patriots were storing their own weapons and gunpowder in the town of Concord, he ordered his troops to march. 700 British redcoats left the city under the cover of darkness, rowed across the Charles River, and began marching the 20 plus miles to Concord. Okay, time for your questions, and I'll see you on the next slide. Patriot alarm riders, led by William Dawes and Paul Revere, galloped through the countryside, warning the American militia that the redcoats were coming. So it was that at dawn on April 19th, 1775, British troops marching into the small town of Lexington found themselves facing a squad of American Minutemen. No one knows who fired the shot heard around the world, but when the smoke cleared, 8 Americans were dead and the Revolutionary War had begun. So answer your questions, please, and I'll see you again on the next slide. The British Army continued on to Concord, but the weapons they were looking for were gone. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by swarms of angry American militiamen. The Battle of Concord began on a small bridge and resulted in a bloodbath for the British. Chased out of Concord and running all the way back to Boston, over 200 British redcoats were killed or wounded. Over the next several days, 40,000 American militiamen arrived from all over New England. They camped on the hills surrounding Boston. General Gage and his army were trapped in the city for now, but the American patriots had picked a fight with the most powerful nation in the world. So now you'll answer your questions, and then you're going to have a series of slides asking you to examine some documents. And I'm going to let you do that on your own. Thanks for listening. I hope this read aloud video was helpful, and I will see you next time.